He keeps coming back. Every night, he stands outside the window, still as a statue. I don't know who he is. I don't know why he's doing it. All I know is that he keeps coming back. I remember when I first saw him. I had just tucked my daughter into bed. I was about to go to sleep myself. I peeked outside the window, which is above the bed. There was something there. I didn't see it at first. I had to really focus. Then it appeared. A shadow. A silhouette of a person. I stared at it, half expecting it to fade into the blackness of the night like a dream or a figment of my imagination. It didn't. It just stood there, most likely staring directly back. I shut the curtains and looked at Clara. She laid there with her eyes closed, her body relaxed, and her face in a peaceful expression. She was already falling asleep. I took another peek out the window. The figure was gone. I thought it was a one-off. Local peeping Tom on the loose. But then he came back the next day. Only now, he didn't leave so soon. He stayed for several minutes. It's been 4 days. He keeps coming back. Or maybe it's a woman. I don't know. All I really know is that every night, when I tuck my daughter into bed, he's there, staring in from outside the window. And every day, he stays longer and longer. I didn't tell her about it. She doesn't need to know. She always falls asleep long before me. All she assumes is that I'm sleeping next to her as usual. She doesn't know what I'm really doing. Sitting up and peering out the window, watching. I refuse to go to sleep until he's gone. Last night, however, was an exception. I was staring out the window. It had been hours, yet he was still there. I could feel my back aching and my eyelids growing heavy. My eyes opened. I could feel the warmth of her body next to me. Sunlight spilled into the room. I sat up and peered out the window. Nothing there, just daylight illuminating some trees in a large backyard. When I closed the curtains, a question popped into my mind. When did he leave? I didn't remember looking out the window last night and not seeing him there. Oh no. Had I fallen asleep? I tried to remember, but I couldn't. For all I knew, he could have been outside the window, standing there all night. It's nighttime again now. I'm sitting in bed, ready for war. I just drank several cups of coffee. I'm not sleeping tonight. Not a wink. Clara is lying next to me. She is already asleep. I sit up and look out the window. There he is. I smirk at him. Let's see how he likes playing my game. In reality, though, I know I can't win. Even if I stayed up all night, what did I get? I protected my daughter for one night, just so she can be endangered the next? When am I going to sleep? Is this going to be my entire life? I pretended that this was a game, where I really knew what I was doing. I pretended I could win. I pretended that, if I stayed up all night, this stranger would take me seriously and go away for good. If only that were the case. If only I could go back and realize that I was only fooling myself the entire time. He stayed there until 6 in the morning. Eventually I saw him leave, a dark, shadowy figure walking away as the night began turning to day. I turned around and sunk into the bed. I was so exhausted. Have you ever woken up in the morning after a skimpy night of sleep and feel so tired you didn't even have enough energy to breathe? That if you didn't lie down that instant to ease the nausea, you'd vomit? That's how I felt, but far worse. My breathing was so heavy that I had to get out of bed to avoid waking Clara. The moment I stood up, I felt dizzy. I stumbled out of the bedroom and laid down in the hallway. It didn't matter that the floor was cold and hard. There was still somewhere to rest. I hoped he wouldn't come back again. I hoped he had gotten the message. But I really didn't know, so I had to assume the worst. As of this moment, I'm in bed again. The day, which consisted of nothing more than me napping as much as I could and chugging amounts of coffee that no human should drink, went by so fast it felt like a dream. I had energy, enough to perform basic functions of breathing, keeping my eyes open, going to the bathroom, maybe even eating. Yet here I was again, in desperate need of legitimate sleep, trying to stay awake. Clara was already sleeping peacefully. I peered out the window, hoping that just maybe he hadn't come back. He did. It's now the next day. Clara is playing with her toys while I lie in bed, trying to get some extra rest. I need it. I remember this morning. I wish it never happened. I woke up to a bright room. This was not just natural sunlight. Somebody had turned on the lights. It then came to me that Clara was whispering something. "Mommy." She looked frightened. My stomach dropped. What happened? She didn't say anything at first. After some hesitation, she said something in a quiet, fearful voice. "A man was out the window." "How did you see him?" When she answered, I felt my stomach drop. "He woke me up. He was patting me on the shoulder." I couldn't respond. I sat up and I saw him there. He did this thing with his mouth and then he started touching me. I had a flashlight and he was looking all over, and I wanted to say something but he didn't let me. Then he left. What have I done? As I lie down in bed, trying to get a few extra hours of sleep before nighttime, my stomach is twisting and churning. How could I let that happen? How could I let my daughter get touched by a stranger? His grimy hands all over my daughter's body while I was right next to her, sleeping. The thought turned my stomach. That would not happen again. It's nighttime now. I've got to stay awake. Gotta stay awake. I've got real incentive now. I know I have something I have really got to protect her from. But the dark room and the soft bed are very tempting. I feel like I'm in a staring contest, glaring at him through the window. Only I can blink as much as I want. Instead, I have to stay up all night. And I'm not doing it for fun. I'm doing it for my daughter's safety. Possibly her life. It happened again last night. I don't know how, but it did. I woke up again, this time the lights off. Immediately, I looked beside me. Clara was sleeping. Relief washed over me briefly. I shook her awake. "Clara!" I exclaimed in a hushed tone. She opened her eyes. "Was he here?" She shook her head drowsily. "No." She was half asleep, so I asked her again later. She still said no. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to believe that he left shortly after I fell asleep. Part of me wanted to believe she was telling the truth. But I knew she wasn't. Clara is behaving very strange today. She seems nervous, apprehensive. As the hours pass, she seems to be growing more and more anxious. Maybe even a little scared. I'm not sure. She doesn't seem upset or sad, but she seems nervous. The amount of coffee I drank today was utterly obscene. It must have been at least 3 pots. I even went out to buy energy drinks, something I never do. When we got home, though, Clara told me something strange. "You don't need to do this," she said. "You won't come back. Nothing happened last night." I ignored this. I still chugged energy drinks and coffee. But after a while, I just started making myself nauseous, and no matter how much I drank, there was still this deep exhaustion inside me that could only be relieved by a night of rich, thorough sleep. Come at me. Come at me if you can. But don't you touch my daughter. I'll do this. I'll do this every night. This is a war you will not win. Sure enough, she did lie to me. He's right there, right where he always is. I doubt he left yesterday. My eyes bore into the silhouette, defined, yet still melting into the blackness of the night. She's mine. I won't let you hurt her. I won't let you. It's so dark, the bed. It's so warm and soft. Clara is next to me. She's sleeping. My stomach churns from the coffee. My eyes burn. They are heavy and overworked. My body is fatigued and weak. Sleep would cure all those problems. this misery, this madness, this anguish that could be relieved just by a nice 9 hours of sleep. But I can't. I have to stay awake. No, stop slumping. My knees sink into the mattress. Can't. Must stay. My eyes flutter open. The room isn't pitch black. A little daylight is spilling in. No! Not again! I sit up to a start. How could I fall asleep? How could I have fallen asleep again? I swerve my head to look beside me. Clara isn't there. This is News 15 Pennsylvania News Station live with current events. Earlier this morning, we received reports that a man in Brittlewick, Solomon County, rescued a young girl from an abusive household. The man, who does not wish to be identified, claimed to have seen the girl walking through town with bruise marks on her arms. Suspecting abuse, he followed her home and returned there every night for almost a week. After eventually getting a closer look at her injuries, he noticed many unnatural cuts and bruises. 2 nights later, he was able to get her out of her home in the middle of the night. The girl's former caretaker will be investigated, where the authorities will press charges if further evidence is found. Right now, she is living with the man, his wife, and his young adult son. He says that she seems very happy, and she is already starting to heal physically and even emotionally. After the investigation, he intends to adopt her and take her to therapy to help her cope with her previous abuse.